Okay, so I took a look at this recoil for the 400 motor, and the recoil was completely screwed up. The recoil spring was rusted and snapped 3 times. So when I took it apart, I found it in 4 pieces, and the components were very seized in place. Now everything's going good. Everything's been greased, and there's new spring in the recoil and new rope. The other rope was only about 3.5 feet long. This one's almost 4 feet long, but it's recoiling good now. And I put a new handle on it. Ordered this off of denniskirk.com, and it arrived in about a week. So it's a good solid plastic snowmobile handle, and I think it was around $5, so it wasn't too bad. $5 American, sorry. So it would be about 6 or 7 Canadian if you had 30%. But it's good enough to go on. All I need to do now is find some bolts that will fit. The bolts that were on this are not here, and they're missing. I don't know where they went, so I'll have to find some in the tote of parts that will fit. It's still, it turns over good. And I was looking at this V-belt. It was replaced about 20 years ago. The last time this snowmobile engine was in it and it was running good. But about 20 years ago, this belt snapped, and it overheated significantly. But when my dad got back to the shop, it would not turn off. It was dieseling, and it was so hot that it was almost glowing. The exhaust was glowing red. It was so hot, and it just died eventually. But it didn't seize up, surprisingly. And the next day, he went to Home Hardware and got a V-belt to fit it and reinstalled it. And it ran amazing after that. It burnt all the carbon out of the combustion chamber, cleaned everything out, and the exhaust was super cleaned out after that. And it was working good after that. And that was when it still had the original clutch on it, not that Comet clutch. I think it's a 102 Comet clutch or such. Model 102-C Comet clutch. So I'm going to get that recoil on it, find some bolts, put the recoil on, and then see if it sparks. See if there's any spark on those old spark plugs. Maybe just put some new spark plugs in it temporarily. Put a little bit of gas in the carb, and if it sparks, put a little bit of gas in there, dump it in there, and see if it fires before I put too much work into it. See what we're working with. Might have to clean the points up. I don't know. I guess it would take a lot more apart to get to the points, to get it cleaned up. But yeah, I'm just glad that this recoil is all put back together and usable. The handle arrived, and it looks like it's gonna work, so I'm glad. And these recoils seem like they're really good and sturdy compared to the 3-wheeler recoil. Just last night I rebuilt the recoil in the 185. I got the parts from eBay, Chinese company on eBay, and I rebuilt this one, and it was missing. The kit was missing the springs, the ratchet springs. They're the hair springs that they have a little notch on them, and they go around and they keep the ratchet dogs in place and prevent them from popping out of the pulley in the recoil, and the kit did not come with the springs, so I had to reuse the 2 that I had from this old one. And yeah, it spins over now, and I'm glad for that. So I'm just looking through here. Got some snowmobile parts. This tote. There's a replacement carb. And in this tote, there should be enough, and there's another box as well, for almost a full Trailfire engine. It was dismantled. And I hope there are bolts for the recoil. There's a recoil. There's parts missing in this. A lot of parts missing in that. There's brakes. There's a piston. There's the gear case. There's a piece for the flywheel to connect onto the recoil. There's a bearing. There's a spring for the hood, or a bungee for the hood. One of those might be it. I don't know. We'll look through and find one that'll fit. There's a lot of random ones. Random bolts. There's some ratcheting dogs for a recoil. There's one. Keep those in there. There's a spring for... No, that's a hose clamp. Bottle cap for a Budweiser. That bolt looks too big. I don't know. I'll gather a bunch up and see if I can find enough bolts that'll fit that recoil to get that engine spinning over. Whew, that thing's got a nasty dent in it. Man, that thing's pretty worn. Whew, poor old piston. That thing's junk. Another old bearing. Carb rebuild kit. Bogey. Oh, gotta get up here. Okay, well, I'll look through here and see if I find a bolt. So none of these bolts are the right size. Found a piece of recoil rope, super tiny recoil rope. Time to look through the tote for some more bolts. Those ones don't fit either. Pile of bolts that I don't know where they go to, but they're for an engine. John Deere Trailfire engine. Not what I was looking for, but found an ignition for the Trailfire, and I don't know where the ignition is for the 400, because it right now has the ignition for the Trailfire in it, because it has the Trailfire engine in it. So I might just use this ignition because it has the generic John Deere key, or small lawn equipment key for lawnmowers and wood chippers and snow blowers and rototillers and such. It's a very generic key, so I would rather use that key, so I have the same key for every snowmobile, than having to buy a new key and ignition. So I'm glad I found that. I just set the engine in the back of the Rustler for tonight. I'll work on it tomorrow. I just got a text message to come in and make supper, so I'll worry about this tomorrow. I went through the whole tote and I couldn't find any bolts that will fit, so I'll have to go in the shop and look for some. Maybe there's some that'll fit, hopefully. But it will go on and spin over, just holding it on. So, something to do tomorrow. Okay, so we're back. I was going to drive the three-wheeler around for the fun of it after supper, but it started raining, so I thought maybe I'd just pull the bolts off of another snowmobile's recoil to mount this recoil on temporarily, because the other engine I'm not going to be using for a little while. So I just carried this down from the barn, and I am way more out of shape than I thought I was. It's not a very heavy engine, but it's heavy when you carry it 100 feet. Phew. But I think they're about a 3/4 inch 10 mil, some kind of, I guess they're a fine thread bolt. There's 3 of them, actually 4, my bad. I think I only have 3, but this one takes 4. So I'll go get those, and maybe if I get this thing mounted or clamped down, I could spin it over and see if it'll have any spark. If it has spark, maybe put a bit of gas in it and see if it starts or not. See if it fires. Anyway, there we go. Okay, so I have it put on a test stand, just the vise. And I was looking here, just to spark plug caps were rotten, so I just wired them on and looked at the spark plugs. They look like they're okay. I mean, I don't want to keep them if I was going to drive this motor a lot and replace them, but for testing spark, they'll do. And I was just trying to figure out what wires need to go where for it to run. And I'm just kind of hot wiring it temporarily. But coil, the wires that go to the coil look like they're connected. I hate to say it, but I might have to take a look at the points, see if they're all corroded or rusty or something. But right now, it's looking at it after I've cleaned it off, it looks like it's in really nice shape, other than some surface rust. Everything's there. The tins are all there, and carburetor parts are all there. Just needs to be, carburetor just needs to be rebuilt. But the recoil is on there now, and it spins over. It's still got a considerable amount of compression. Of course, if that with the spark plugs out, it wouldn't really have much resistance there with the spark plugs out, but it spins over good. But that's the current status of this. Just figuring out if we're going to have spark, still figuring that out. After a few tries, maybe I'll just put some some new lawnmower spark plugs just on the caps to test spark. That way I know the spark plugs actually work. But hopefully I'll get this running. Just at least get it to fire. And that's the current status of this. We finally got a decent snowfall. It's about -6 out right now. Driveway's finally frozen. It's been wet and slushy all day. So last night I didn't really show what I had finished with the 400 motor. I got a little further with it. We spent a little bit of time with it, and it got further than I expected it to. And it's coming along. Got the Comet clutch off it. Got the shroud off it. Got the fan cover off. And have the flywheel off. Because there was still no spark. And there was no voltage reading or amperage reading coming off of anything. So, and I was a complete idiot. There is no wiring needed to this plug. It will run without anything being plugged in. I was wrong. The plug that goes into this, there's one on here for ground. There's one from each point, each breaker point. And when you turn the key, it leaves it open, and then when you turn the key, it grounds it so that there's no spark. And then one of them is for headlight and taillight power. But if you look here, your condensers, your alternator coil for power and accessories, primary ignition coil number 1, primary ignition coil number 2. Here's points here. This is the closed position. They're making contact, and that means no spark. Open means spark. They're stuck open. They should be stuck closed. This one kind of works. Springs back, but on close inspection, they aren't even making contact. So I have to back that screw off, see if I can get that one working or not. Might just buy a kit that has 2 in it. I'm going to take my multimeter, set it to ohms, check the condensers, see if the condensers are fried. Then check the coils as well. I'm not sure if the coils are bad. I know they're grounded out. I took these off and cleaned up the contacts. They're grounded out for sure. I'm going to do a little more tonight. After I find out whether these condensers are fried or not. If they're fried, then buy a new kit with new condensers. Might as well buy the new points as well. And hopefully the coils are okay. If they're not okay, buy new ones. That's what I'll do tonight. Clean up some of my stuff that I left all over the place. You have to order new spark plugs as well. They're a different size from the Trailfire size. I had 2 spare Trailfire plugs. They're the wrong size. Later on, I'm going to get a wire brush, clean up these tins, fan shroud. Maybe I'll paint them or something with some paint. You know, they're supposed to look silver, but black will look fine. Critique me if you wish. So it's making a bit more progress. And this exhaust manifold is still good. It's in a lot better condition than the muffler. So that's good. There's a look down in the spark plug hole. I can't. Oh, I still turn it over. It's hard to see there, but there. Turn it over. It's a lot easier to turn over with the clutch on, but cut it off. So about 20 years ago, that original clutch flew off. The parts flew out, it quit working. So my dad had the idea, since we had a spare Comet clutch for a 440 Trailfire, let's throw this thing on. Why not? Try it out. He made a bit of a spacer here to fit in there so that it would fit the tapered shaft. And it worked, but it didn't work. It wasn't on properly. So it would shake quite a bit. You're driving it, the whole engine would shake. So it was it wasn't on correctly, it wasn't on straight. So, and it was out of alignment. But this new clutch, clutch for it that's new to me, if we can find the bolt, this bolt is not for it. I'm pretty sure it's for the Trailfire. Same threads. But hopefully that new clutch will work. Hopefully it'll last a little while. And if it doesn't, then I'm up shit's creek. So hopefully it works. And yeah, I'll do another little update when I'm done. Look at me not staying on task. I didn't want to give up the opportunity of being out here and not driving around the 3-wheeler. And this one, the 185, now I got the recoil kind of fixed. It's easier to start and drives a little better. But the tires were both flat, so I threw the 200s tires on it, since the rear axle on this is a 200 axle. Hubs fit right on the ends. The tires are a bit bigger than the other ones, but this thing looks a little beefier. I'm just gonna let it warm up in the shop here first before I go out. But I was gonna take that 400 motor and actually do what I said I was gonna do. But I wanted a 3-wheeler to warm up a bit before I tried starting it.